You'll go after charters. You'll go after private schools, you go after everything, but you will leave them magnets alone because those magnets are the deal that public education makes with bougie parents to keep them in the system. So they will never touch them. And those same bougie parents that are there just for those islands of privilege will be the first ones showing up to be anti-charter and anti-everything else, right? Like, I support public school. Really? We'll put your kid in a regular public school where they have to accept the entire public. And then we can have a conversation about how much you support public. No, they're not going to do that. What I want everybody to do wants to argue with me about it having options and choices. What I want you to do is find the worst performing public school in your city and put your child in it. If you support public schools so much, this is what I need you to do. Find the worst performing public school in your city and put your kid in that school. Don't be like a lot of these people.
That's really anti-privilege, bro. I think better. I expect better of you.
It is Freedom Friday, and you are still not free.
Welcome to another episode of Freedom Friday. It is Friday, and you are still not free, but hopefully you will be freer after this hour with the gang and me. Today, we have a very special guest, Jahquille Ross. Sir, am I pronouncing your name the right way?
You are. You actually got it right.
All right. Jahquille Ross is with us. He works with New Schools for New Orleans. It's the 25th, or is it the 20th? It's the 20th anniversary of a big upset in that city, the city of New Orleans. And I don't like to call these things anniversaries because anniversaries are for things that are good. But let's just say there's been 20 years of educational change. I don't want to say that it was better or worse than it was before. I'll just say it was, 20 years of change. As someone who went there, I don't think you even know this, Dr. Ross. I went to Valencia C. Jones, Gregory, and Abramson in New Orleans. So I'm part of the old school.
Yeah.
I remember the way things used to be.
I remember Gregory. That's a real popular school. And I remember Abramson is still around.
Abramson is still around.
Yes.
Changed his name, though, to something different, though, right? Or is it still Abramson?
It's still Abramson.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Well, listen, just for everybody listening, this is not a pathway that anybody in New Orleans would ever went, because going to Jones and then Gregory and then to Abramson makes no sense in the scheme of things in New Orleans. Those are not schools you put together. But I was a problem child, which meant I just had to go wherever they could put me. And we'll see if things have changed. But sir, thank you very much for coming on today. I would love to know from you what is top of mind right now, because a lot of people are going to be talking about New Orleans this year. And I know that there's about to be something that's going to drop in terms of a series of interviews and stories that have taken place with local folks there. And it'll get a little bit of national attention. So I'd love to just hear from you quickly where you think we are with the story of New Orleans and education.
When I think about education in New Orleans being a product of the public school system as well, post-Katrina, had the opportunity to go to as educated pre-Katrina and post-Katrina in the New Orleans public school system. But a lot of people are going to say, one is, are schools actually better? We have this 100% charter landscape. Is it improving outcomes for students? That's probably one thing that's top of mind for a lot of people. Another thing about it, top of mind for a lot of people, is right after the storm, we had a huge influx of Teach for America core members and other alternative certification individuals, which we had a huge population of Caucasian teachers, educators in our system at that time. So we've been working diligently on, making sure that our teach force work population matches that of our student demographics. So that's something that we've been working on as well. And the other thing that comes to mind is our facilities. We had, I think, we had really poor school buildings here in the city of New Orleans prior to Katrina. And there's been a lot of work post-Katrina on making sure that our buildings are new, up to date, and compliances to meet all the needs of the students that we serve. So those are the three things that kind of come to mind immediately: student outcomes, teacher demographics, and buildings.
Yeah. The building's much better. Much better. I can remember being young there. See, this is the old stuff that's going to come out. No air conditioning in New Orleans in two of my schools. How do you expect it to learn in New Orleans with no air conditioning, right? See, kids today, y'all got it too easy. Apropos to you, Dr. Ross, to you, Ish, to you, Sharif, there's a lot of attention that is paid to a lot of different things in education, New Orleans being one of the places, but the teacher, strengthening the teacher core, or making the teacher core look like the students, or making sure teachers are prepared. These are all questions around teaching and learning that you all have had your hands in. And I wonder what you would say about where are we with the quality and the diversity of teachers that our students deserve, because it's part of the question that I think I think we gloss over, like what's going on with teachers, and do we have the right ones, and is it improving, and where are they coming from, and who's teaching them, whatever. What would you guys say is the state of that part of education right now?
Look, I think heading back to our workforce demographics, right after Katrina, we saw a lot of Teach for America people turn to certification. And that is not the case anymore in New Orleans. If you look at the various teacher pipeline pathways into the profession, Teach for America is not bringing in those huge amount of cohorts that they once were. I can say that because I am a Teach for America person as well. So I have the pleasure of being both. I am traditional. I went to Tuskegee University, but studied elementary education, and I did TFA. And I can definitely say I appreciate both perspectives and the approaches to how teachers are prepared to enter the classroom and serve our students. But I came in at a time we had maybe out of 150 people in my cohort, the majority of at least half of us were African American. So and that was a big thing. There was a big pushback in the city. It was either you hated TFA or you loved it. And one of the main complaints is that the TFA people that were coming in, they were doing the 2 years and they were not staying. They were not committed to those students and those communities in which they were working in. With the help of a lot of federal grants over the years that New Schools for New Orleans has been able to secure, we've been working diligently, primarily on the workforce demographics. So we have maybe like 92, 93% of our students identify students of color. And then we look at our teaching population currently, we're at 73% of our workforce being identified as educators of color. So we've made a lot of great strides there. You took look at from 2005, 06 to 2025. A lot of work being done there.
Howard Fuller, Dr. Fuller, mentor, says oftentimes when he talks about New Orleans, he says a lot of cities in the United States are unique, but New Orleans is unique of the unique places in New Orleans.
Yes.
I would imagine these folks from Philly would try and say that Philly is unique too. But it does raise a different question for me about Philly and New Orleans, which is there's preparing people just to teach, just to know how to teach, but there's also preparing them for where they're at. Like where they're at, you're going to not just be a teacher, you're going to be a Philly teacher, you're going to be a New Orleans teacher. What type of work goes into making sure that when you do get teachers, or you're hiring people, that they're right for the local culture?
Sure, if you want to go.
No, let's start with the New Orleans context first. Yeah. What did y'all do? Y'all hired these folks, so how did you make sure that they were prepared? I'm sure there'll be some consistencies, but I would love to, for you to start us off.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that really comes to mind firsthand is communities. New Orleans is very neighborhood driven place. I'm from Algiers, so on the West Bank. So we you gotta get to. It is an awesome feeling when you live and you work in the same community, so that you can get to know those families. Sometimes I dislike going to Walmart by my house because I would always run into kids and families like you just want to break sometime. But that was another opportunity to make those relationships even stronger and the impact to be felt in the community. So I think one is having the knowledge of where they're teaching and the students that are coming from those various communities. I think that's one thing. The second thing I think is important, especially in our high schools. New Orleans is a very special place when it comes to high schools. People will often ask you, well, what school did you go to? No, they're not talking about college. They don't care what college you went to. They're talking about what high school did you go to. So it is a deep value in traditions when it comes to educating and working in our high schools. And what does that mean? You said you went to Abramson. I went to Edna Carr High School. So knowing like the history behind our high schools is important, and those different alums who've come through those schools.
The high schools were very much like colleges. I mean, not to put too much of a fine point on it, but there was a time in which if you were dating somebody and they brought you home and their father asked you, what high school did you go to? And you said the wrong thing, you got to get out of here, bro. You got to go. It would affect who you could marry, who you could be with, you know.
Did. And it still does.
And they were serious. It's still, you know, some things don't die very easily. And it was definitely more so, more than anywhere else I've ever seen, between the parochial system and the public system. And even within the public system, there were tiers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
There were tiers of education.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how that is now, but back then there were the parochial.
You had the parochial schools. You had your magnet schools.
There was, you know, magnet schools. You had parochial schools that were more on the expensive end. Then you had the working class parochial schools that were still money, but they
weren't as costly.
It cost as much. Then there was the Ben Franklins of the world where not everybody could go.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were the working class magnets.
Mm-hmm.
And then below those, you started getting into the everybody else schools.
Yep.
Right. And that everybody else schools, as somebody who went to the everybody else schools, couldn't have been more of a caste system in New Orleans. But I think there was a lot of disruption after Katrina. You know, a lot of things changed. But kicking back to you, Sharif and Ish, about this idea around teachers got to come from somewhere, and then you place them somewhere. And how are they right for the place? Like Philly is its own city. You both have done work, or at least been here to Minneapolis, to Minnesota. So, you know, we're in a totally different situation. I'm always wondering, how do we get the teachers that we need for the place that they are going to teach?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, you know, one, just seeing if someone sees themselves as leaders in that community, it's easier for them to imagine leading in that situation, you know. But so often we don't develop youth as leaders. You know, we give them messages like, "Yo, you got to wait your turn, be old," and you know. Then others were saying, "Oh, we see leadership, but we're telling you to leave the community." We're like, "Get your education and get out." You know, flee. And I remember that was one of the first phrases. You know, I banned when as a school leader, like, don't tell people to flee their grandparents, their parents, their families, their communities, the folks where they actually experience love. Yeah, they experience trauma, but so do you, wherever you came from, you know. But they also experience love, you know. And I think that's also the lens that people coming, you know, to become teachers, that's often their lens is often really grimy. You know, it's covered with soot that's been filled their heads, and that you know, which leads to low expectations, which leads to, you know, I've seen people who come into communities and they're teaching, but they teach with contempt for the people that they're teaching, with a level of contempt for the folk of the communities that they come from, a level of fear from being in. So you don't you didn't grow up here, you don't shop here, you don't live here, you don't visit here, so you have no relationship with the community besides with the 5-year-old that you teach or the 15-year-old that you teach. So your entire relationship and schema is your experience with the child or what you get from the media. That's, you know, doesn't always lead to success. I was more often say it usually leads the opposite direction unless they are willing to really understand, embrace, know themselves and what biases they have, and then know the community that you profess to want to serve.
Yeah, and I just want to veggie back off of that idea.
Veggie, bruh, veggie, let's go.
Yeah, all the time.
Bro, we have to get you on some pork, man.
Listen, I don't eat that pig.
We have to get you some bacon so you can
Turkey
stop
bacon. Turkey bacon.
Stop this. There's no such thing as turkey bacon.
I was about to say, don't insult it with the turkey bacon.
There's no such thing.
I forgot we got something on the line.
Yeah, we got two New Orleans. You talking about turkey bacon?
Ain't nobody doing no turkey bacon.
Just for the record, everybody listening, there's turkey and there's bacon. There's no such thing as turkey bacon. So.
But, for me, there's layers to that whole conversation, right? Where we're even talking about folks coming in, why they're coming in, what's the motivation, right? When I even think of an organization like Teach for America and after Katrina, right? From my lens, from up here, it looked like a bunch of folks doing missionary work, especially the amount of dollars that flew in from philanthropic organizations at the time, flooding New Orleans. I even think about Paul Vallis, who was in Philadelphia and gutted a lot of our system. He went down to New Orleans, you know what I mean, before going to Haiti and gutting that system. So for me, it becomes like that layered approach of how we're looking at it. Not only are we talking about a teaching force, and in New Orleans pre-Katrina was mostly Black, like 70% Black. Now, and then after Katrina, you just see this huge dip, increase of funds, and then kind of this charterization of the whole network where communities got disrupted, mostly Black communities across New Orleans that had, although dilapidated buildings, low test scores, there was a sense of community and what you were talking about at the beginning, a tradition that was there. And then we see this happening across the board, right? There's no coincidence that you saw the same thing happen in Chicago and Philadelphia and these Black majority cities where a claimed crisis was at stake and something dramatic had to be done. But then you bring in this workforce that is like almost like, missionaries coming in to save these children, to save these systems. So like already by default, you're creating like kind of a system that's going to produce what it's supposed to produce. And that's like a compliant situation, not necessarily an improvement for the communities in which it serves. And for me, for when folks come into Philadelphia, you have to know that history, right? To shout out our homie, Dr. Kamika Royal, her book, Not Paid for Us. Like if you're teaching in Philadelphia, you should read that book. You have to contextualize your reality. You should be walking around the neighborhood in which you're going to be teaching in the school that you're going to be teaching in, right? You should know what those nodes in that community are to contact, to, approach in order to actually situate yourself, not to impose yourself on the community, but understand that you have a lot to learn in order to function properly for the benefit of the students in front of you. So for me, it's like a very layered thing. So I'm very curious, especially for someone who attended pre-Katrina schools, post-Katrina schools, and then working in the system under the Teach for America system and still there operating in the function and the role that you do now.
Yeah.
I know that's very layered.
It's definitely indeed layered. Everything you said, just as you were talking, is like, yeah, all of these things are definitely true. They come front of mind for me. And I'm just thinking about like the identity piece that Sharif was talking about first. Like you got to know yourself, and that's going to help you know how are you going to go into the classroom? How are you going to go inside the school building and work with the student population that you signed up for? And how do you remove those biases, before you even do that? How do you work with that? How do you work with those biases while you're on the job? And I think at that time when I came on through Teach for America, that was something that they were working really heavily on. There was a lot of work on the onboarding side when we came to New Orleans after being in Atlanta for like the teacher boot camp piece around being that no nonsense nurturer, as they would say, but also what does it mean to have to know yourself, your values, and what does it mean to be involved in the community in which that you are serving.
Yeah, and that Dr. Ross, that part is so important. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't want listeners to think that knowing yourself is just like, oh, well, I like chips more than pretzels. I like this, right? Right. It is literally like, Dr. Ali Michael, who's a professor out here, she talks about like when she confronted how was I raised to think about Black people? That was her turning point to really become the educator that she needed to be, where she realized, like, you know what, I was actually taught and fed tropes, racist ideas. And even though, you know, I look at like, oh, I don't pay attention to that. She was like, I realized like it was, you know, deeper in me because she realized she had a fear of, you know, of Black people sometimes, or Black men, right? Like she was just like, she would tense up, and she had to unpack that and realize it was at her dining room table that a lot of those messages in the car rides home, you know, in addition to the media, the news, who were just constantly showing folks, you know, either in despair or criminalized. And, you know, when she grew up in Pittsburgh, that's what she was, a steady diet of that, thousands of episodes, you know, so that's what she was, thousands and thousands of episodes of that. And then she's like, oh yeah, I'm just here to teach, without unpacking that. And it would come out, it would manifest itself in the most stressful ways, in the most stressful times. Teaching is stressful. So that is it's more likely, you know, if you're sitting on the beach and chilling, yeah, I love all people, blah, blah, blah. And you're in a stressful situation, that's when people, you know, accidentally blurt out the N-word, right? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I didn't mean to say that. Where'd that come from? Yeah, like, yeah, that's in your heart, Joker. You know what I mean? So knowing yourself is a much deeper exercise, and it's ongoing. It ain't I did that workshop, now I know, and I've rid myself of the biases. This is an ongoing work because you're constantly being fed, you know, that kind of nonsense.
You know, I want to introduce a point that's kind of provocative, and I'm going to go a roundabout way to get there, but that's what I do. I had a chance to interview this brother named Ralph Farukqua. And if y'all don't know who he is, Ralph, he wrote 3 sitcoms. He created 3 sitcoms: South Central, Moesha, and The Parkers, the spinoff. He also, I think, was co-writer for Bebe's Kids. And what people don't know is he wrote Crush Groove back in the day, the movie Crush Groove, right? He also did The Sinbad Show, The Proud Family, and Real Husbands of Hollywood.
Did he do any good shows or good movies?
He actually started writing too, and this is the funny thing.
No,
he started with writing.
Some of that was cool. Some of
that was real good.
Yeah.
We just took your black card, bro. You just took your black card. Anyways, he started, his very first lucky gig that he got was writing for Happy Days, and that was because he was working at the front desk somewhere where Gary Marshall came in and asked him, you know, what he was doing, whatever, and he ended up writing for Happy Days. I had to ask him, the Happy Days, like the real one?
Dr.
Why
Ross
am I telling you the story?
What that is.
You listen, y'all.
He don't have a single gray hair. He's like, he don't know what Happy Days is.
You're right.
We'll need you to Google it.
You're on the money, Sharif. I don't know that one.
I saw you look over your face like, huh? When he was talking about the other shows, you were like, yeah. The other one was
I know these other ones. I tell you this story because Ralph grew up in Cabrini Green in Chicago with Black teachers. And he got like a rare opportunity to go to the U.S. Military Academy West, and had a high school counselor tell him, be realistic. That's not for you. And he also got accepted to one of the Ivies. I can't remember which one it was or whatever. Had a teacher tell him, be realistic. That's not for you, right?
I was about to ask you, is he a Black or white person? But you just answered that question.
He's Black,
yeah.
Grew up in Cabrini Green with Black teachers and Black educators and Black counselors who were college educated and middle class, teaching kids who weren't college educated and middle class, but they were both Black. Both of those groups. So we like to talk about racism and preparing white teachers for Black schools, but we don't talk about is New Orleans and Chicago and Detroit and a lot of places had damn near all Black teacher forces. And for years and years and years, no one wanted to talk about the class issue. Like there's a lot of teachers that look like us that walk in classrooms every day with crappy attitudes about the children that they're serving, like bougie kind of judgmental attitudes. And they lord over school systems sometimes, where the least of these get put into the classrooms for the least of these because they don't want to teach you, right? So when somebody comes in to disrupt a Chicago or Detroit or New Orleans, part of me is like, you know, that feels like colonial stuff, but it also feels like the thing that they're disrupting in some ways is neo-colonialism. Because what New Orleans was and Chicago was before the white disruption, they were neo-colonial. The authorities looked like you, but often treated you the same way that everybody. I mean, New Orleans for a long time was a very punitive city to youth. still is when you look at his criminal justice system, like still very punitive. Like it's almost a railroad straight into the system in some of these places. We don't talk about it enough. I've said this before. If you really looked at the child policies of some of these states, including Louisiana, the only conclusion you could come to is that they hate their youth. They hate their young people. Because there is, in so many of these places, a railroad for our young people. And a lot of times our own people are participating in, they are the train conductors in some of these, we call them school to prison pipelines. This is the school to prison nexus. They're running schools that look like prisons sometimes. Now, I'm not saying this about New Orleans or Philly, and no one get mad at me. I am talking about your city, but I'm not going to talk about it to you directly to your face. So if you're in Chicago, I'm going to say it's Detroit. If you're in Detroit, I'm going to say it's Compton, right? Like I'll just, I'm only trying to raise a point here. Sharif, you've said we don't just need more Black teachers. We need more conscious Black teachers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, because that contempt that I was talking about earlier, that has no shade of skin. The contempt that you have for others, your anti-Blackness, it's going to come out, and your parents may have moved you away from, the masses, but said in a more negative, derogatory term. They may have moved you, and you may have been raised in a certain way, certain outlook. You may be Jack and Jill now coming to Cabrini Green and teaching, but without thinking, okay, what does it mean to be raised in one context and now leading in a different context, right? And so this is why. So when Ish says like the 3 books, I tell any, this is the thing, like training teachers. So many folks they're reading the wrong books. They're having the wrong professors, right? So it's not just who's leading the classroom. Like that's actually further downstream. To me, the most important thing is who's preparing them. Who's preparing you to lead in this classroom? And if it's just some professor in an ebony or ivory tower that's also disconnected from the community, that's also, talks with, with their pinky up as they drink tea and nose up in the air, and they're training you to come lead. That's
cucumber sandwiches.
Yeah, cucumber.
Would you say eating cucumber
He has a thing
sandwiches?
against cucumbers. I want you to know cucumbers is a hydration vegetable. Like
veggie back. We need some BLTs, some bacon, lettuce, and tomatoes. We need.
Yeah, man. But it's so it's the whole continuum, like the intellectual, cultural genealogy that we speak about so much on Freedom Friday. It lives in Black people, brown people, whoever, right? And then who are they leading?
The only point I'm trying to introduce, though, when I say what I said, is that we are correcting oftentimes for cultural, for racism and anti-Blackness. I don't think we have a good vocabulary yet for the class problems. America has an overall class problem, but our school systems have very much a class problem. That's why there are these tiers of education.
Yeah, especially if it's a neighborhood school, right? So, as you said, especially if it's in a neighborhood school, you can see the difference. The magnet, the parochial, the magnet.
The magnets, nobody ever talks about the magnets. Like how do kids get in there? How do they stay in there? Who can they exclude? Who, we talk a lot about public schools for public people and all that, blah, 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 but you never get around to the magnets. I would love to talk, as somebody who didn't get into Ben Franklin, I would love to talk about it. I'm still wounded all these years. I went and took that damn test to get in, feeling like I was
It was
smart.
a long test, too.
It was a long test, a long day, and they were like, nope, you can't come in here. Oh, wait a second, I thought this was a public school. Yeah, it's public for some of the public. You're not part of the public that this is for, right?
You're a different public.
Different public.
You're a different public, and every city has these schools, these magnets that kind of become islands of privilege in a public school system. Schools that are so exclusive that they might as well be private.
And as you said, they're excluded from the overall conversation often.
Oftentimes, no one is going after them. You'll go after charters. You'll go after private schools. You go after everything, but you will leave them magnets alone because those magnets are the deal that public education makes with bougie parents to keep them in the system. So they will never touch them. And those same bougie parents that are there just for those islands of privilege will be the first ones showing up to be anti-charter and anti-everything else, right? Like, I support public school. Really? We'll put your kid in a regular public school, right? Where they have to accept the entire public. And then we can have a conversation about
that.
how much you support public. No, they're not going to do that. What I want everybody to do who wants to argue with me about having options and choices. What I want you to do is find the worst performing public school in your city and put your child in it. If you support public schools so much, this is what I need you to do. Find the worst performing public school in your city and put your kid in that school. Don't be like a lot of people.
That's really anti-privilege, bro. I think better. I expect better of you. That's anti-privilege. You can't come on, man. These people work hard to buffer their kids from society, and now you coming in and attacking them. You know what I mean? Like, that's not right.
At every economic level, there's a place for you to do that, to buffer your kids. If you can only afford this much or this much or this much or this much, there's at every level.
But that's America, right? Like that is the American.
That is.
This is true.
That's the part that's heartbreaking. And my mom, to quote her all the time, she's like, America hates children. And she said you can look at it across all the institutions, all the ways they think, talk about outcomes, every angle, and add a layer of blackness or add some shade of color to that, it just intensifies. But they don't love their own kids, man.
Well, I want to I know I've been saying negative stuff, but I want to circle back to New Orleans in this one way to say, I think my critique is right about what it was before Katrina. It was very much a neo-colonial. It was a colony of the United States that looked like another country, but most of the people running it were black and light-skinned, light-skinned black folks, right? It was and I come from the Creole Mafia, so I can say it. It was a Creole Mafia in that city.
You light-skinned?
Yes. I was part of the Creole Mafia, and if anybody was leading anything in New Orleans, they probably most likely came from the Creole Mafia.
What is it? Bajan.
I'm a Bajan. I'm Bajan American. I'm beige. So that's what you do when you take over another country. Like, you find people that look like the natives, and then you have them run everything, and then you escape claims of being a colony, right? And that was New Orleans before Katrina. And then after Katrina, the new colonists came in, the real colonists. The colonies came, right? It was like the American Missionary Association came from the north, and all that. You had people popping up from San Francisco, starting restaurants and buying houses and stuff in New Orleans. Like, wait, where you come from? Oh, I'm from Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
But I love it here. I love it here.
I know somebody from Boise, Idaho that lives here.
And all of a sudden, 2 years later, they start looking like New Orleans and they start talking like New Orleans, So then you had the real colonists come in. But the positive part of the story to me is now we've had 20 years of having to struggle with both of those issues that I just talked about. And I feel like New Orleans doesn't get its fair credit for the things that it has had to work out over these 20 years, because it had to invent things that didn't exist, right? And let me just give you one example. The amount of work that has been done in New Orleans to address trauma, Black trauma and Black childhood trauma, and things that happen from crime and whatever that find their ways into the schools. It's been a laboratory for figuring things out. Like, I'm not saying they solved it. I'm just saying they've invented some things that solved problems over this time. Everybody likes to talk about test scores, but this has been a 20-year laboratory of having to figure out culture and systems and how you enroll kids.
Yeah,
and where you enroll them, and what's the enrollment was a huge one.
Right? Multi-enrollment in one semester is a huge one, right?
Listen, that
serial
was such
enrollment.
They had to come up with and you could correct me, Dr. Ross, if I'm wrong here, but I seem to remember that they contracted with MIT to figure out the algorithm to make it the most fair system, right? They put an actual algorithm
in place when it comes to enrollment. That is one of the biggest things that our district oversees when it comes to all the schools in the city. We actually have, it's so big, we have a chief enrollment officer at the district level.
Wow, y'all got that in Philly?
Chief enrollment? Somebody has it. It ain't a chief. I mean, one of the chiefs has
it. I'm sure. Y'all better get down to New Orleans.
Look, at least we got good food, bro. Like,
come on, y'all food ain't better than New Orleans. Now, come on now, come on.
Where do you have good food?
All across Philly, bro. What are you talking about? Everywhere. Like
you sent us on a trip to go get
Philly cheesesteak? What are you talking about?
Them soggy sandwiches. Them soggy sandwiches.
That don't compare to a po' boy. Come on now.
No, bruh. Please. Soggy sandwiches.
Every time I turn around, there's some daggone alligator sandwich and stuff. That ain't food. That ain't eating, man. That's
bro. You eat insects. You need to stop it. You eat insects, bro. Stop it. Just stop it. Anyways, my point in pointing this out is, Philly, Minnesota, where I live, Oakland, every place you can, they could all learn something from New Orleans about putting in. And then, okay, well, we have an unfair enrollment system. What are we going to do about it? That's the New Orleans way. Like post-Katrina, that's become the New Orleans way. Okay, you're going to point out a problem? All right, well, I guess we better work on it.
Definitely. They've been very, although we have like these 30 or 40 some charter management organizations in the city, there is this space.
Damn, 30 or 40?
Yeah.
New Orleans is small, 30 or 40. How many students overall in the city?
It's about, let me see, enrollment.
How are you going to have more charter management? How will you have more charter management organizations than students?
We have 43,000.
43,000.
43,000 students. So you have a range.
Charter management.
You have a range of like large CMOs, your mid-sized ones, your smalls, and then you even have some single sites.
Yeah.
That's
which I'm more in favor of the single sites, by the way, just for everybody. I know people hate that. They like the opposite. They like these Best Buy, big chain, big box organizations. I love me some mom and pop organizations. They have troubles, but I love them more because they can customize down to the,
Look, I prefer that than a state with 500 districts with one school. Right. Some of the districts being one school.
Yeah.
Okay.
New Jersey got 300, almost 400 districts. Pennsylvania got 500 districts. Like, to me, that's insane.
Jeez.
That's a good point. I mean, because that's a lot. That's a lot for one state. And they should be sharing economies of scale somewhere. That's like so wasteful. But Dr. Ross, what would you say are some other issues within the laboratory that there has been some invention or New Orleans has worked on that other folks can learn from?
One that's coming to mind right now is the funding formula for how the dollar gets to the schools for the kids. So, for example, every kid in New Orleans public schools, there's a set amount that goes per kid. But then it gets a little differentiated depending on the need. So we know that high school needs a little bit more than K-8 needs. So that there's a little bit more money that follows students when they're in high school. And another example would be if a student is in high school and they want to go to New Orleans Career Center. There's another layer of support that's given there, or for students with disabilities, or if a student has been incarcerated. We know that there's some additional supports that are needed. So one thing I think that's been really great is the funding formula that the money goes, the greatest amount of money goes to those in the greatest amount of need. So I think that is the thing that's been really helpful. Another thing that comes to mind is I also have a radio show every Monday. It comes on WBOK here in New Orleans. I had the chance to interview a young lady. She was telling me, I can't think of her name right now, but she was telling me about the restorative justice circles that have been going on, because we know that because our students get to go to school all across the city, open enrollment, so nobody is forced to go to school in their neighborhood or within their district. And sometimes when students bring in issues from their different communities inside the school building, then the school leaders and those educators are forced to try to resolve those issues. You're talking about those can be really big and challenging for a school to take on by themselves. So there's money poured into the juvenile restorative justice circles to help outside of the school bring these families or these different various communities together to help talk about the issues that are impacting the students on a day-to-day basis. So I think that is one thing that has also been great. Another piece.
Yeah. I'm not into restorative justice, so y'all know. I like retributive justice. I like to, because you used to get whoopings in New Orleans.
Yeah, I got a lot of whoopings as a child.
Did you really at your age?
Oh yeah,
they were still doing that.
My mom was old school.
Oh no, I mean at home.
Oh,
I mean, you used to get
no,
whoopings at school.
not at school. No.
Okay,
that's still happening today, right? Like, isn't it like I remember a couple years ago we were part of a campaign.
It's still legal in 11 states. It's still illegal to whoop a child at school. Still illegal. I'm still legal. I'm sorry, in 11 states.
Now imagine you got some racial or class biases, and you got the power to paddle.
Come on
top of that, like that's some wild stuff, bruh. But again, that goes back to the punitive nature of, like that's also
this is how crazy it is. At St. Aug in New Orleans, they used to keep the paddle on the wall where you could see it, right? And I remember it had holes in it, and asking an old timer, well, why does it look like that? Because they have holes in the paddle. And the answer was so criminally insane that I could not believe it was, that's better technology because the holes in the paddle make it fly through the air faster to hurt more.
Straight from a plantation.
That's
straight from a plantation. Like they had
those.
Of that?
Yeah. Who thought of that, right? All right. Well, listen. I know we're coming closer to time, but I did want to make this point. I want people to pay attention to this. As a lot of people talk about New Orleans, please keep it in mind that has been a laboratory for innovation and figuring things out. And I hate even using the word innovation because I think it comes with too much baggage.
Yeah.
I would prefer to call it problem solving. You raise a problem and you criticize us. And then, okay, so our response is going to be, okay, then if the enrollment system is bad, then let's figure it out. Let's go to MIT and get an algorithm that makes it fair, right? If we have too many D and F schools, okay, well, let's figure that out. Why? What support do they need? Who needs to stay? Who needs to go? What turnover does there need to be? Oh, okay. Well, the teachers don't look like the students. All right. Well, damn, this is going to be a hard one because the teachers of the United States do not look like the students. And Sharif, you've said this, the number of schools that don't have a single teacher of color is like astounding, that number. So if you're a city trying to figure that out, like how we're going to get competent, qualified people of color, whatnot, New Orleans said, hey, hold my beer. Let's figure this out. We're going to have to work on it because you guys are going to keep criticizing us about it. But this is what I want to ask all three of you. Say I'm a young Black man in college right now, and I'm doing pretty good. I'm the first generation to go there. And I have some options coming out of school. Sell me on the idea of becoming a teacher of all things. Like, because I'm getting recruited by other people who need to, check their box that they did some diversity events and came and found me. And they're telling me I could move to another city, make a lot of money or do something different. I'm first generation. And here you come saying, have you ever thought about being an educator? Sell me on this job.
I'm going to tell you one thing that sold me early on when I was in high school and I was thinking about what I was going to do. It was right when I graduated and I knew I was going to Tuskegee University. And they were like, well, do you want to do secondary? You want to do elementary? I was like, I'm going to do elementary. And I did elementary education because my first male teacher wasn't until I was in middle school. And of course, he was the football coach and he taught social studies. So the opportunity to work with our youth early on in their educational journey was one of the most rewarding things I think I could have ever signed up to do. And to do it in my own community where I had support from, those in the community, my family, and I had the opportunity to work alongside educators who taught me. So, learning and working alongside them was one of the best things. And hey, you don't have to be a teacher forever. I'll consider myself, I'm always a teacher, will always be a teacher, but there's other opportunities to impact the field of education beyond the classroom, beyond the school building.
So just on this point, I want to sit here just for 1 second and say, why is it so hard to get Black male teachers, even when they want to become teachers, to teach in the younger grades? Like I've told Sharif and Ish this a million times, there's only one grade that I would teach, and that's kindergarten, maybe first grade.
I taught second.
Those are only two sisters. So look at the balloons. Look at the
balloons. You said second grade, first grade.
And you took second grade.
I taught second grade.
And everybody I say that to is like, nah, bro, I got to do high school. Why is that? Why is it so hard to get, when you are recruiting Black males, to get them to do the younger grades?
I think it is a lot of the Black males want to coach. They've been an athlete or something to that nature, and they're interested in the most of the coaching aspect on the secondary level.
What do you think, Ish and Sharif? Because I mean, we got to sell this job to more Black men.
I mean, I think that's a part of it, and what's not spoken about as much, but Black men have shared this. There's also like a stigma, like there's people are like, why you want to be with them little kids? You know what I mean? Like there's a negative message about a Black man saying like, hey, I want to back to again people's biases, people how they view Black men, and if you have in your psyche or in your policies suggests that Black men are more likely to be abusers, be predators, then you're like and that's the thing, like an applicant feels it. You don't have to write it on the chalkboard. They feel the reaction, the raised eyebrow if you say, I want to teach kindergarten. They're like, what's the matter with you? Why you want to do that? You're not. So
every time I say this, people are thinking about that about me. Every time I say I would only teach kindergarten. What?
I mean, I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying, but there is, Black men have shared that they felt that, or they, kind of people ask why, and they may not have even explained the, like why they were asking the why, but they felt like, why. You didn't ask the white lady right next to me why she,
why she teaching
or the white man,
or
the white man, or the Latino man, or anybody else. It's only Black men, and this is what I will say. My answer to it, just for anybody listening and watching, is when I was a school board member, I used to visit schools, and now over a period of 15 years or so, I've visited schools. I've visited hundreds of schools. This is what I've done. You notice something over a period of time that the kindergartners and the first graders, and in some cases, second and third graders, still have that spark in their eye. The world hasn't gotten to them fully yet. But if you visit as many schools as I do, right about fourth, fifth, sixth grade or whatnot, you start seeing the light go out in a lot of students, right? I don't know what school does to kids over time, but I can tell you you visit kindergartens and then you visit eighth grades and you start asking yourself, there's something that takes place here between those two grades that is not great for our kids. So I want to be at the front end of that. I damn near want to be in Head Start to make sure that all of our kids get a head start, a real start, right? Like before the world gets to them and before they get filled with all kinds of stereotypical nonsense, right? If you never see a Black man in an authority position teaching from your youngest ages or whatnot, what do you think you grow up thinking about Black men, right? My son, the year that he had his first Black male teacher, that Black male teacher was in Minnesota from down south, and he was a mathematician. And that was the first year that my son liked math, right? Really saw himself in math and whatnot. I still don't like it. And I didn't like it when he was a kid. I didn't tell him that, but I didn't like it at all. But, the year that he had a Black teacher from the South who was a mathematician. Yeah. So anyways, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail your guys' responses, but I am interested in how we sell this to someone in Philly, for instance, right? You're going to Penn and you've got a pretty good set of prospects ahead of you. What are you going to say when you meet with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's important is we're going to support our youth in whatever it is that they choose. Because we need us everywhere. Literally, we need us everywhere. We need more Black men doctors. We need more Black men engineers. We need more, so we're needed everywhere, particularly when you talk about the smaller sector who even has a degree who can enter some of these doors is such a small number. And so it's spread out. What I just try to do is just make sure that they, are invited, make sure that they're known that they are, desired, but for the reasons that may be different than, hey, you know what, we can't control these Black kids. We need you to be up in here and stand in the gap. So we just try to make sure that they understand their worth as leaders in the community and help connect the dots between leadership and leading a classroom. And what does that mean? Because often it's like, oh, yeah, I love this content and that's what I want to teach. No, you love your people. And it's part of our tradition to make sure that we are lifting as we climb, that we are teaching and passing on information to the next generation. What attracted me to the classroom was the connection between teaching and activism. Like that's what attracted me. I was going to be an activist no matter where, if I entered the sciences or, the legal profession, it was going to be with a lens of activism. And when Dr. Martin Ryder shared, hey, here's a closer, like what you're trying to achieve, you can get there faster by teaching, by leading a classroom. That's what sold me. That's what, and then we speak to youth who have that, they're inspired by that. they're inspired by the next, having an impact on the next generation. But many of them talk about becoming the teachers that they wish they had and knew they needed. So they're saying like, hey, you know what? My experience was so terrible that will not happen on my watch for the next generation. Right. And same as Dr. Ross said, we tell them, the most folks are not going to do any career for 30 years. That's just not how society or people's, this generation is. So like, yeah, I am interested in doing this for 5 years and then thinking, but also making sure they know that there's so many different opportunities, research, coaching, whether it's athletic, those type of coaching, but I was even thinking instructional coaching. Mm-hmm. Right, writing curriculum. Like, what idea would you want to like flesh out so that will help the next generation become smarter? There's so many things that often people just think teaching, no, that's one aspect. You want to ground yourself in that. Don't, so that you're aware and know about pedagogy and how to be effective. But it's limitless as far as like other ways to do it, both inside the traditional sector or outside. Like maybe you want to one day start your own school. What better way to do that than initially teach and become great at it? Then you understand what could this look like in 30 classrooms instead of just one.
What do you say, Ish?
Yeah, man. I definitely want to say that, and just I think some of the barriers, and we didn't really touch upon this, is like the genderized dynamics of folks who teach younger grades. That is not viewed as like a manly situation. I don't know how to describe that. And there's no models to base that off of, or very few models that people have experienced be like, oh, I want to be like that, or I want to replicate that, or my experience with that. And when you do meet Black male educators in those positions, that's usually what they say. So it's like they usually have a model that they got from, and they love little children, you know what I mean? But then at the same time, the way I always advance education to my students or even to my own sons, which I've been pumping it, is that it gives you a diverse set of skills. Not only are you able to be at the intersection and the crossroads of class, race, gender, all the things that our society has, but you actually engage with it. And if you engage with it in an authentic way, then you're able to speak to those diverse audiences. You're able to go in and out of those communities and be able to understand and root yourself in something much more deeper that is based on that human endeavor of becoming a better person. And you become a better person if you really are about that life when you go into the situation where you learn from your students, when you learn from the communities in which you serve, and then vice versa, they learn from you. And that creates something different. And then those skills you gain, you can take that into any place in the world. Like after you teach a couple years, like I know for a fact, public speaking, you're able to do that, right? You're able to present a complex ideas through a PowerPoint that isn't boring people to death. You're able to like, you know what I mean? So like weaving in and out, like I've met educators that started off as teachers and then became like museum curators, making exhibits in museums or, curating libraries or, consultants for other organizations when it comes to their educational endeavors. And if you root yourself in that like meaning of that education's human endeavor and that you really, really authentically approached it, those skills can be taken out into the world. And then you can actually transform the world as much as you transform the students in your classroom. And that's my argument when it comes to it. Because at the end of the day, and I always refer to this, Kwame Ture talked about this, when SNCC went into Lowndes County to organize sharecroppers, he always talks about how they came out different, the lessons they learned, the type of people they became, right? And that's what becoming a teacher does to you if you're really going into it with an open mind and an open heart.
Well, I appreciate all those answers. I would think you all know that I focus a lot on what Black men say to each other about fatherhood and about fathering, because it's one of the identities that has been stripped from Black men. We think of white men as good fathers. We think of Latino men as good fathers. But when it comes to us, no one ever asks us about our fatherhood strategy. How did you know what you were going to do when you became a dad? How did you decide whether you were going to spank or not, or become, a gentle parent or not, or what was going to be your style? Yeah, really. But I mean, how do you make those decisions? You see a Black man about to have a child right now in his 20s, let's say. how's he going to invent for himself a construction of the father he wants to be and he's going to be? Well, most Black men I know in their 30s or 40s that are fathers can answer that question for me. Well, listen, man, this is how I had to do it or whatever. We don't think of ourselves as that being one of a common part of our identities. We think of a lot of other identities, besides that. So to believe that we have the nurturing ability, that we have thought this through and understood how to do this, if you don't believe that, then you're not going to believe in a Black male kindergarten teacher, right? Because when I think about that, I don't think about somebody who's coming into someone other's spaces. I think they're expanding their ability of what like we have the ability to raise children, right? Like we have something unique to offer as Black fathers, Black men. And I don't think we get that credit or that due when you think about the stereotype of us not being able to teach in younger grades. And Dr. Ross, I'm glad to see that you taught in second grade, because I just want to be real with y'all, whatever. I don't know what the excuse is. I'm not trying to teach high school. Y'all can have that one. You can have all of that. Take all of it. Listen, and definitely not middle school.
Middle school is I jam with middle school.
Did you really?
I did jam with middle school.
Really?
I mean, I hit seventh. I had experience from middle and high, and I love both. I just have not worked in the elementary school, but I started off.
Well, we wouldn't need to come back on this show and do this again, because this one thing, middle school is the forgotten part of education. People need to think about it, because our middle school strategy in the United States is all jacked up.
It's all over
and it's where
place.
all hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose. We think about early ed. We think about elementary. We think about high school and college. Man, listen, the core, if you or anybody does CrossFit or anything like that, the core is middle school.
It is.
And it's a weak core right now.
It goes all over the place. I mean, you got middle school, you got K-8s, you got 7-12s, you got, I know that just recently they're phasing out. They had one building for 6th and 7th.
Oof.
No, one building for 5th and 6th, another building for 7th and 8th, right? And so just imagine even just those transitions. You're in a K-4 building, then you go to a school for 5th and 6th grade, then you go for 7th and 8th, then you go to high school. I mean, it's all over the place across the country, and you see it back and forth, like, oh, K-8, no, put them in middle school. No, go get K-6. Like that's a rough time. That's a rough time.
High school's important, y'all. High school's important. As someone who did it for over a decade, y'all, I see some magic happen with folks.
Oh, 100%. I agree.
I'm going to concur. I will concur, because actually
just pick your lane, man, and dive in. Like the students are calling our names to come in and provide educational and racial justice inside of schools and classrooms, from get set all the way through, so.
They love it. They love it when we show up for them.
Yeah.
I think y'all gave me my blog post I got to write over the weekend, this middle school one. But Dr. Ross, I hope you'll come back anytime and have these conversations, because there's so many things that you brought up today that I think we could keep talking about. But the one thing that I am very interested in people knowing about New Orleans is the problem-solving gene in that city now is part of the city. It's part of the having to invent something new that didn't exist before is a normal part of business.
It's a normal part of business, and a part of that, there are no F schools in the city of in New Orleans.
Really?
There are no schools rated as an F.
Wow. What'd y'all do? Just move the scale up to a D so there's no F? Just for the record, that's what Minnesota does. Minnesota does that. They change the cut score. Oh, our scores are bad? Let's just change the cut score then. And then everybody's succeeding. So anyways, I'm joking. That's not what New Orleans is doing. Don't nobody call me or send me any messages. New Orleans is inventing a new way forward, and they need to get recognition, not for test scores, not for charterizing, not for charters. They need to get recognition for being a laboratory of when there's a problem, they put smart people on it and they try and solve it.
Yes, that's true.
One of those problems is child trauma. And there's no city in America that has, I think, the situation that New Orleans has. So if you were somewhere else and you need to learn about childhood trauma, what people are doing to address it,
come on down.
New Orleans is a good place to look to. Yeah, it's a good place to look to. Same thing about gun violence and trying to figure out how you keep families stable. All of it is part of the same. And the biggest one you mentioned already, I just want to raise this up again. The biggest problem in public education, in my mind, one of the biggest, is how we enroll kids in schools. The amount of opportunity they get just from that one decision point in education changes lives all across the country. And we don't want to admit that because we love us some suburban schools so we can keep our kids away from those other kids, right? Like, and when I say we, I'm only talking about Sharif. The rest of us don't. You know, rest of us
not
don't
I, said the cat. Not I, said the cat.
Actually, I'm the one who lives in rural America, so I better stop. Well, listen, appreciate you, brothers, as always. We should come back and have more conversations like this. For everybody listening and watching, please share this with other people that you think should be watching this. And if you want to reach out to Dr. Ross, you can find him at New Schools for New Orleans, the organization there that is, I would call them the champion, but really they're the navigator of the progress that takes place in that city. So reach out to them. They have research. They have connections. If you want to learn anything that we talked about right now, I would say call them. Call Dr. Ross, call Dana, call any of the folks there. They will connect you with who you need to get connected with in that city.
That is correct.
Thing. So, yeah. And Philly doesn't have anything like this going on, so don't worry about it.
The hate is real out in these streets.
Bro, listen. I will hate Philly until y'all correct that scary looking
image that you have.
What's the name? Gritty?
Gritty, bro. Give love to Gritty, bro.
If y'all don't get rid of that mentally ill looking thing as a marker for your city. Anyways, this has been another
BMAC, bro. He gonna be on your panel.
I can't be responsible for what I do if you bring him to BMAC. Gritty might get tackled. This has been another episode of Freedom Friday, and you're still not free, but hopefully you are freer after this hour with the gang and me. We appreciate you as always, and we will see you and hear from you on the next episode. Thank you.